The massive circular chamber of the Galactic Council hummed with the voices of over 200 species. Floating translation devices buzzed around the room like mechanical insects, converting the cacophony of alien languages into something each delegate could understand. Admiral James Walker stood at the entrance, breathing deeply to calm his nerves. After decades of searching the stars, humanity had finally made contact. The year was 2157, and Earth's first official diplomatic mission to the Galactic Council was about to begin. "Ready, sir?" asked Lieutenant Tom Davis, adjusting his uniform. The small delegation of 5 humans looked almost comically out of place among the varied alien forms. Walker nodded, "As ready as we'll ever be." The announcement came in a series of musical tones that somehow penetrated all other sounds. The representatives of planet Earth, Sol System, request audience with the Council. All eyes, sensory appendages, and various biological and mechanical perception organs turned toward the humans. Walker felt his throat tighten, but kept his face neutral. They had trained for this moment for months. The lead council member, a tall being with iridescent scales named Corvin, raised a 6-fingered hand. Earth's representatives may approach the central platform. As they walked forward, Walker noticed many delegates staring at the standard-issue sidearms the humans carried. Some were whispering, others making sounds that might have been laughter. When they reached the platform, Corvin spoke again. "We welcome Earth to this gathering of civilized worlds. However, we must express concern at your bringing weapons to a diplomatic meeting." Walker cleared his throat. "With respect, High Counselor, these are standard diplomatic protocols for our people. The weapons are purely defensive." A purple-skinned delegate with 4 arms stood up. "I am Vex of the Ardenan Empire. I find it amusing that these primitives believe their projectile weapons would offer any protection here." More laughter rippled through the chamber. Walker felt his face grow hot. "Our weapons may seem simple, but they are effective in various environments." "And effective?" interrupted Vex, his voice dripping with scorn. "Your species still relies on launching small metal objects. The technology is prehistoric by galactic standards." Another delegate, a floating gelatinous being, joined in. "Most civilized races abandoned such crude methods millennia ago. Energy weapons are far more efficient and controllable." Walker tried again. "Our research indicates that kinetic weapons have certain advantages in different." "Enough," Corvin said, raising his hand. "We understand that Earth is new to the galactic community. Your quaint traditions will be tolerated for now." The council session continued for hours. Earth's representatives presented their case for membership, sharing information about human culture, technology, and their newly established colonies on Mars and Europa. Throughout the proceedings, Walker noticed the dismissive glances, the barely concealed smirks when humans mentioned their military capabilities or technological achievements. As the session drew to a close, Corvin announced the Council's decision. Earth will be granted limited membership status, with restrictions on further colonial expansion beyond your current solar system. Your technology must be reviewed before any trade agreements can be established. And your military vessels must remain within 1 light year of your home system. Walker frowned. These restrictions seem unusually severe for new members. Vex let out a harsh sound that the translators interpreted as laughter. "Be grateful, human. Barely spacefaring primitives are rarely granted any status at all." As they left the chamber, Davis whispered to Walker, "They think we're jokes." Walker nodded grimly. "They're judging us by their standards, by their understanding of warfare and weapons. Should we have tried harder to explain?" Walker shook his head. "Some lessons can only be learned through experience. Let's hope it doesn't come to that." The humans returned to their ship, their first contact with the galactic community leaving them with a bitter taste of condescension and restrictions. But Admiral Walker knew something the Council didn't. Humans had always been adaptable, resourceful, and dangerously innovative when underestimated. 2 weeks after their first meeting with the Galactic Council, Admiral Walker and his team returned to the massive space station that served as the headquarters for interstellar diplomacy. This time, they brought Captain Mark Reed, Earth's foremost weapons expert and a veteran of the Mars colonial conflict. Reed was a stocky man with steady hands and eyes that missed nothing. He carried a large metal case that had raised eyebrows, or whatever passed for eyebrows, among the station's security personnel. "They still think we're a joke," Davis whispered as they waited in the antechamber. Reed smiled slightly. "Good. Underestimation is a tactical advantage." The doors slid open, revealing the now familiar council chamber. Fewer delegates were present today, just the Committee for Military Affairs and Technology Assessment. Vex of the Ardenan Empire sat prominently among them, his purple skin gleaming under the artificial lights. Gorvin's voice echoed through the chamber. "Earth representatives, you requested this special session to discuss military technology classifications. The Council has granted this request as a courtesy." Walker stepped forward. "Thank you, High Counselor. We believe there has been a misunderstanding regarding human defensive capabilities. We've brought Captain Reed to provide clarity." Vex made a dismissive gesture. "What clarity could there be? Your weapons fire primitive metal projectiles. There is nothing to discuss." Reed placed his case on the floor. "With respect, we'd like to request a demonstration." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Demonstrations were rare, particularly those involving weapons. Gorvin looked surprised. "You wish to discharge weapons in the council chamber?" "Not here," Reed replied calmly. "I understand you have testing facilities on the station for evaluating new technologies. We request access to one." After a brief discussion among the council members, Gorvin nodded. "Very well. This should be educational for all parties." 1 hour later, they stood in a large, reinforced chamber deep within the station. Various materials were arrayed along one wall, samples of defensive technologies used throughout the galaxy. Reed opened his case and removed a standard-issue Earth military rifle. It looked almost crude next to the sleek alien technology surrounding them. "This is an M42 combat rifle," Reed explained, handling the weapon with practiced ease. "It fires tungsten-tipped rounds at approximately 1,200 meters per second." Vex snorted. "Fascinating. And what do you propose to demonstrate with this antique?" Reed gestured to the samples on the wall. "I'd like to test it against your defensive materials." "A waste of time," Vex said, "but proceed." The council members moved behind a transparent barrier. Reed loaded the rifle, took aim at a shimmering plate of what appeared to be some alien metal, and fired. The crack of the rifle echoed in the chamber. The alien material, which a small placard identified as Ardenan battle plate, shattered instantly. Behind it, a second sample of Moravian energy-dispersing fabric was punctured cleanly. The third layer, something called Unified Shield Composite, stopped the bullet, but developed a spider web of cracks. Silence fell over the room. Reed calmly ejected the spent casing. "As you can see, kinetic energy transfers differently than energy weapons. Your defenses are optimized for energy dispersion, not mass penetration." Vex stepped forward, his forearms twitching with agitation. "Impossible. That plate stops energy weapons 10 times more powerful than your primitive gun." "That's precisely the point," Reed replied. "Energy isn't mass. Different principles apply." Gorvin moved closer to examine the damaged materials. "Most concerning. Our defensive technologies were not designed with such weapons in mind." Reed returned the rifle to its case. "Humans never abandoned kinetic weapons because they work. We've simply refined them over centuries." As they left the testing chamber, Walker noticed the council members huddled together, speaking in urgent tones. Their earlier mockery had vanished, replaced by something that looked remarkably like concern. "Do you think they understand now?" Davis asked quietly. Walker watched Vex examining the shattered battle plate, his purple face contorted with disbelief. "They're beginning to," he said. But understanding and accepting are two different things. The demonstration had planted a seed of doubt in the Council's collective mind. Human weapons weren't primitive after all. They were simply different, operating on principles the galactic community had long ago forgotten or dismissed. And that realization made them dangerous. Admiral Walker stood before the emergency meeting of Earth's United Defense Council. His face grim as the holographic display showed the Ardenan vessels moving into position around the human colony on Proxima Centauri V. "It's a clear provocation," Walker said, pointing to the tactical display. "They've positioned 30 warships just outside our territorial boundary." General Emma Black, head of Earth's Space Force, leaned forward. "How many colonists do we have on Proxima?" "Just over 12,000, replied Walker. "Mostly researchers, miners, and their families." President Robert Miller rubbed his temples. "And the Galactic Council, what's their position?" Walker's jaw tightened. "They claim this is a bilateral issue between Earth and the Ardenan Empire. They've chosen not to intervene." The room fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. After the weapons demonstration 3 months ago, several council races, particularly the Ardenans, had grown increasingly hostile toward Earth. What had started as mockery had transformed into fear, and fear was now becoming aggression. The communications officer interrupted. "Sir, incoming transmission from the Ardenan flagship." "On screen," ordered President Miller. A holographic display flickered, and Vex's purple face appeared. His 4 arms folded in what humans had learned was a gesture of superiority. "People of Earth," Vex began, his translator making his voice sound unnaturally smooth, "the Ardenan Empire has determined that your expansion to Proxima Centauri constitutes a security threat to established galactic territories." Walker fought to keep his expression neutral. The Ardenans had no legitimate claim to any system within 50 light-years of Earth. "We hereby deliver our terms," Vex continued. "You will abandon your colony on Proxima Centauri within 14 Earth days. All military assets will be withdrawn from the system immediately. Failure to comply will result in the Empire taking necessary action to secure its interests." President Miller stood. "Ambassador Vex, Proxima Centauri is well within Earth's recognized exploration zone, as established by the preliminary membership agreement with the Council." Vex's upper lip curled. "Agreements can be reinterpreted. The Empire has determined your presence there is unacceptable." "This is nothing but intimidation," Walker interjected. "You have no legal claim." "Legal claims matter little when backed by superior military force," Vex interrupted. "Your primitive weapons and ships pose no threat to the Empire. I suggest you comply with our reasonable demands." The transmission ended abruptly. General Black slammed her fist on the table. "They're banking on us backing down." "They still don't take us seriously," Walker added. "Despite the demonstration, they believe their superior numbers and technology give them an overwhelming advantage." President Miller paced the room slowly. "Options. We evacuate Proxima. We look weak," said General Black. "We lose our most important off-system colony and set a precedent. The Ardenans, or others, will make more demands. If we fight, we risk war with a technologically advanced empire," countered Defense Secretary Jones. "They outnumber us significantly." Walker cleared his throat. "Mr. President, I believe there's a third option. A limited military response to demonstrate our resolve without triggering full-scale war." "Go on," Miller said. "We send the 4th Fleet to Proxima. 6 destroyers and the carrier Independence. Enough to show we're serious, but not enough to appear as an invasion force." General Black nodded. "The 4th has been equipped with the new railgun systems. They've never seen those in action." President Miller considered for a long moment. "Will it work, Admiral? Can we actually win a military engagement against them?" Walker's expression hardened. "They've built their entire defensive doctrine around energy weapons and shields designed to counter them. But they've never faced weapons like ours in actual combat." After hours of debate, the decision was made. The Fourth Fleet would depart for Proxima Centauri immediately. As Walker left the council chamber, he couldn't help but remember Vex's smug expression, the absolute certainty of Ardenan superiority. The same expression he'd worn when mocking human weapons at the first council meeting. Some lessons, Walker thought, had to be learned the hard way. The bridge of the UES Independence hummed with nervous energy. Captain Frank Wilson watched the tactical display as 6 human destroyers formed a protective screen around his carrier. The blue dots representing Earth ships looked painfully small compared to the swarm of red markers approaching from the direction of Proxima Centauri. Ardenan Battle Group has cleared the orbital line, reported Lieutenant Jane Foster at the tactical station. 15 vessels total. Classification: 8 cruisers, 5 destroyers, 2 battleships. Wilson nodded. Right on schedule. Admiral Walker stood beside the captain's chair, hands clasped behind his back. Open fleet-wide channel. Channel open, sir. Walker took a deep breath. All ships, this is Admiral Walker. We are here to defend Earth's sovereign territory and our colonists. The Ardenans believe their technology makes them invincible. Today, we prove them wrong. Hold formation and wait for my command. The human ships maintained position, engines glowing softly against the blackness of space. The massive Ardenan vessels approached with confidence, their sleek, purple-tinted hulls gleaming in the light of Proxima Centauri. Incoming transmission from the Ardenan flagship, announced the communications officer. On screen, Walker ordered. Vex appeared, seated in what looked like a command throne. Admiral Walker, I see Earth has chosen the path of resistance. How unfortunate. We are protecting our legal claim to this system, Walker replied evenly. We have no desire for conflict, but we will defend our territory. Vex laughed, a harsh sound even through the translator. With 6 destroyers and a carrier, against an Imperial battle group, your bravery is matched only by your foolishness. Walker's expression remained neutral. Last chance to withdraw, Ambassador. The time for talk is over. Your colony will be ours within hours. The transmission cut off. They're powering weapons, Foster reported. Energy signatures consistent with plasma cannons and particle beams. Walker nodded. As expected, they're preparing for a standard engagement. He turned to Wilson. Captain, deploy fighters and prepare main batteries. The Independence shuddered slightly as its launch bays opened. 40 fighter craft streaked outward, taking position ahead of the main fleet. Ardenan fleet is activating shield systems, Foster said. They're establishing a 3-tiered defense grid. Walker smiled thinly, just as they were trained to do. All ships target designated points and prepare to fire on my mark. The Ardenan vessels continued their approach, seemingly unconcerned by the small human fleet. Their shields glowed with blue-green energy, layered defenses designed to absorb and dissipate energy attacks. They're within optimal range, Foster announced. Walker pressed a button on his wrist communicator. All ships, fire. The human destroyers fired simultaneously. Instead of energy beams, massive tungsten rods erupted from railgun mounts, accelerated to frightening velocities. The fighters released swarms of kinetic missiles, each carrying conventional warheads. On the tactical display, Walker watched as the projectiles approached the Ardenan shields and passed straight through them. The shields, designed to block energy weapons, offered almost no resistance to physical objects. The rail gun rounds tore through the hulls of the lead Ardenan ships, while the missiles detonated against their unprotected surfaces. Direct hits across the board, Foster reported, voice tight with controlled excitement. 3 Ardenan destroyers critically damaged, 1 cruiser venting atmosphere. The bridge crew watched in stunned silence as the Ardenan formation fell into chaos. Their return fire, powerful energy weapons that would have devastated ships with inferior shielding, splashed harmlessly against the specialized human defenses, specifically designed to counter the alien weapons. Second salvo ready, Wilson reported. Walker nodded. Fire. Another wave of projectiles streaked toward the Ardennen fleet. 2 more ships fell out of formation, internal explosions visible through massive hull breaches. The remaining Ardennen vessels began a hasty retreat, their orderly formation abandoned. "They're withdrawing," Foster confirmed. "All Ardennen ships are breaking contact." A cheer went up from the bridge crew, quickly silenced by a gesture from Wilson. Walker stared at the retreating enemy ships. "Send a message to Earth. First engagement successful. Minimal damage to our forces. Ardennen battle group in retreat." The battle had lasted less than 15 minutes. Foster looked up from her console, eyes wide. "Sir, we're receiving distress calls from the damaged Ardennen ships." Walker sighed. "Move in and render assistance. We're not here to slaughter them." As the human fleet approached the crippled alien vessels, Walker couldn't help but wonder how the Galactic Council would react when they learned what had happened today. The lesson about human weapons had begun. The emergency session of the Galactic Council began in chaos. Delegates shouted over each other, translation devices struggling to keep pace with the flood of languages. At the center of the chamber, a holographic display showed the battle at Proxima Centauri from multiple angles. The footage played on loop, human weapons tearing through Ardennen shields as if they weren't there. High Counselor Gorvin struck his ceremonial staff against the floor 3 times. The sound echoed through the chamber, bringing a measure of order. "We will have silence," he commanded. "This council must address these events with reason, not panic." Vex stood before the council, his purple skin now pale, and his 4 arms hanging limply at his sides. The defeat had shaken him to his core. "The humans," he began, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. "Their weapons, they passed through our shields as if they were not there. 15 ships against 7, and we were forced to retreat within minutes." Gorvin turned to a small, gray-skinned being with large black eyes. "Technical Director Maz, you have analyzed the battle data. Explain what happened." Maz stepped forward, activating a new holographic display. "What we witnessed was not a malfunction or a tactical error. It was a fundamental misunderstanding of human weapon systems." The hologram showed a close-up of a human rail gun firing. For over 2,000 years, advanced civilizations have used energy-based weapons, plasma, particle beams, directed radiation. Our defensive systems evolved accordingly. The image shifted to show an Ardennen shield failing to stop a human projectile. But human weapons do not use energy to destroy. They use mass and velocity. Physical objects accelerated to incredible speeds. Our shields are designed to disperse energy, not stop solid matter. A murmur ran through the chamber. "Could our shields be modified?" asked a delegate from the rear. Mad shook his head. "Not easily. The principles are entirely different. It would require a complete redesign of defensive systems across the entire Council fleet." "This is absurd," shouted a large insectoid delegate. "Are we to believe that a newcomer species has rendered our defenses obsolete with primitive technology?" "Not primitive," corrected Maz. "Different. While we pursued energy weapons to their logical conclusion, humans continued refining kinetic weapons. They never abandoned them because, in many environments, they remain highly effective." Director of Military Affairs Draz, a heavily armored reptilian, stepped forward. "We face a strategic dilemma. The humans possess weapons our defenses cannot stop. Yet their fleet is small, confined largely to one star system. They must be contained," Vex shouted, "before they expand further." "And how do you propose we do that?" asked Gorvin. "Your battle group was decisively defeated by a force less than half its size." The chamber fell silent. A delegate near the back stood up. Lori, representative of the Tellarate Confederacy, was known for her pragmatic approach. "Perhaps," she said carefully, "we should consider an alternative approach. The humans have demonstrated they possess unique military capabilities. Instead of seeing this as a threat, we could view it as an opportunity for collaboration." "Collaboration," Vex sputtered. "With primitives." With a species that clearly understands aspects of warfare we have forgotten, Lori corrected. Their technology complements ours. Together, we would be stronger. The council chamber divided into heated discussions. Some delegates clustered around Vex, arguing for immediate military action to contain the human threat. Others gathered near Lori, discussing potential alliance opportunities. Gorvin watched the divisions forming with growing concern. In his 300 years on the council, he had seen similar patterns before. They rarely ended well. "Technical director," he said quietly to Maz, "if we were to engage in conflict with humans, what would be your assessment?" Maz's large eyes blinked slowly. "Based on current data, concerning. Their weapons bypass our primary defenses. They think differently than we do. And history suggests that when threatened, species often accelerate their military development." Gorvin nodded grimly. The council had laughed at human weapons just months ago. Now, those same weapons had created the greatest military crisis in centuries. As the debate raged on, one thing became clear. The galaxy would never underestimate humans again. Ambassador Vex stood before the private gathering of military powers, his purple skin flushed dark with emotion. Representatives from 7 major empires had answered his call, meeting in secret away from the official council chambers. "The humans must be stopped," Vex declared, pounding his lower set of arms against the table. Their victory at Proxima Centauri was not due to superior tactics or technology, but merely our lack of preparation for their primitive weapons. General Krull of the Moravian Defense Force growled in agreement, his scaled jaw clicking. One battle does not make them a threat. They caught the Ardenans by surprise. That advantage is now gone. Vex activated a holographic display showing the human home system and nearby colonies. "Our intelligence indicates their fleet consists of fewer than 50 warships. They have only 3 extrastellar colonies. If we act now, we can end this threat before it grows." "What exactly are you proposing?" asked Delegate Thrix, her crystalline form catching the light as she shifted position. "A coalition," Vex replied. "Combined forces from all our empires. Overwhelming numbers. We will crush them completely, demonstrating to the rest of the council what happens to upstart species." Quiet murmurs filled the room as the delegates considered the proposal. "The council has not authorized military action," Frix pointed out. Vex smiled coldly. "The council is divided and weak. Some members speak of alliance with the humans. By the time they reach a decision, it will be too late. We must act now." One by one, the delegates nodded their agreement. Within hours, deployment orders were being sent throughout 7 empires. A massive fleet would assemble near the Ardenan homeworld before jumping to the human colonies. Meanwhile, in the official council chambers, Admiral Walker met with the pro-peace faction led by Lori of the Tellarate Confederacy. "We have intelligence suggesting Vex is building a coalition against Earth," Walker explained, his face grim. "Our analysts believe they may be planning a preemptive strike." Gorvin frowned. "This is deeply troubling. The Council has not authorized any military action." "Vex doesn't appear to be waiting for authorization," Walker replied. "We estimate they could assemble a force of several hundred ships within days." Lori leaned forward. "What do you propose, Admiral? Even your remarkable weapons cannot overcome such numerical superiority." Walker nodded. "You're right. We can't match their numbers. But we don't need to." He activated his own holographic display, showing a series of defensive positions around Earth's colonies. "We've been developing new defensive systems specifically designed for our unique situation. Strategic placements, utilizing our understanding of both human and council military technology." A hologram showed clusters of weapons platforms positioned near jump points and orbital approaches. "Automated defense grids," Walker explained. "Unmanned platforms armed with enhanced rail guns and missile systems. We can deploy them in layered formations that would make any direct assault extremely costly." "But surely they would eventually overwhelm such defenses," Gorvin said. Walker's expression hardened. "Perhaps, But we've also developed mobile platforms that can be repositioned rapidly. And our R&D teams have created some specialized applications of our weapons technology. Lori studied the human carefully. You seem remarkably prepared for a species that joined the Council less than a year ago. Humans have a long history of preparing for worst-case scenarios, Walker replied with a thin smile. It served us well. Back on Earth, President Miller reviewed the final defense plans with General Black. Are we ready? He asked simply. Black nodded. The orbital platforms around Earth and Mars are fully operational. The Proxima Centauri grid will be online within 12 hours. The Jupiter shipyards have completed the specialized weapons for our destroyers. And the new project? Miller asked quietly. Project Thunderbolt is ready for deployment. Black confirmed. Though I pray we won't need it. Miller stared at the tactical display, showing the gathering coalition fleet. Nearly 300 ships from 7 different empires, all converging near Arden space. They still don't understand, he said softly. Even after Proxima, they still think our weapons are primitive curiosities. Black's expression was solemn. Some lessons must be learned the hard way, Mr. President. As the human defenses moved into position, and the alien coalition gathered its forces, the galaxy held its breath. The next engagement would not be a skirmish, but a battle that would reshape galactic politics forever. And deep in human space, hidden shipyards worked frantically to complete weapons that even the Council's most advanced species could not imagine. The coalition fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. 342 warships from 7 empires filled the space near Proxima Centauri, their weapons hot and shields at maximum power. Commander Drac of the Ardennes flagship Inevitable Victory surveyed the tactical display with satisfaction. Vex stood beside him, all 4 arms clasped in anticipation. Scan for human defenses, Drac ordered. Detecting multiple weapon platforms in orbital positions, the tactical officer reported. Similar to those encountered in the previous engagement. Vex scoffed. As expected, they've had time to set up static defenses, but nothing that can withstand our combined firepower. Drac nodded. All ships, advance in formation. Target those platforms first. The massive fleet moved forward, its front line of destroyers preparing to absorb the first wave of human attacks. They had studied the recordings from the previous battle and modified their shields, adding layers of physical armor behind the energy barriers. Human platforms powering up, the tactical officer announced. Reading energy signatures, different from previous encounters. Drac frowned. Different how? Before the officer could answer, the human platforms fired. But instead of the expected railgun rounds, they released what appeared to be small, glowing projectiles that moved at relatively low speeds. Some kind of missile, Vex said dismissively. Primitive and easy to intercept. The coalition's point defense systems fired, energy beams lancing out to destroy the incoming projectiles. But when struck, the projectiles didn't explode. They split into dozens of smaller objects, each continuing toward the fleet. What is this? Drac demanded as the swarm of objects approached. The answer came moments later as the tiny projectiles impacted the coalition ships. Each one released a powerful electromagnetic pulse, temporarily disabling shields and weapons systems. Multiple ships reporting power fluctuations, the communications officer called out. Shields down across the front line. And then the main human fleet appeared, dropping out of stealth positions behind Proxima's larger moons. Only 12 ships, a fraction of the coalition's numbers, but they moved with precision and purpose. The human vessels fired their main weapons, not at the coalition ships, but at specific points in space around them. Massive explosions blossomed, creating fields of superheated plasma that disrupted sensors and communications. They're boxing us in, Drac realized too late. All ships, break formation. Retreat to. His words were cut short as the human defense platforms fired again, this time launching conventional railgun rounds at the now vulnerable coalition ships. Without their shields, the alien vessels suffered catastrophic damage. In the Earth Command Center, Admiral Walker watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. "Coalition fleet is in disarray," reported General Black. "Their formation has collapsed. 28 ships confirmed destroyed, 64 disabled." Walker nodded. "Deploy the Thunderbolt." From behind Earth's moon, a single massive vessel emerged. Twice the size of any human ship previously seen, its hull bristled with weapons unlike anything the Coalition had encountered. When it fired, it didn't target ships but the space between them. Gravitational distortion weapons, developed in secret using principles gleaned from studying Council technology, created localized gravity wells that pulled Coalition ships into each other, causing collisions and chaos. The battle lasted less than 30 minutes. When it was over, half the Coalition fleet had been destroyed or disabled. The remaining ships were in full retreat, jumping to hyperspace in desperate, uncoordinated bursts. 1 week later, Admiral Walker stood before the full Galactic Council. The chamber was silent as he concluded his address. "Earth does not seek dominance or conquest," Walker said firmly. "We defended ourselves against unprovoked aggression. But now we extend an open hand. Our weapons technology, defensive systems, and tactical knowledge. We offer to share them with the Council for the common defense of all." Gorvin rose slowly from his seat. "The Council acknowledges that we have greatly misjudged humanity. Your weapons, which we once mocked as primitive, have proven to be sophisticated and devastating when properly applied." He gestured toward the display, showing the designs for a new class of defense platform, one that incorporated both energy shields and physical barriers. "We accept your offer of cooperation. Earth is granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with all rights and privileges." In the years that followed, human engineers worked alongside alien technicians to develop integrated defense systems. The Council chambers were remodeled, and at the entrance, encased in transparent material, hung a simple human rifle, a reminder to all species that different does not mean inferior, and that underestimating newcomers was a dangerous mistake. The galaxy had learned its lesson about human guns, and they would never laugh again.